Hey guys, this is going to be part 2 for the class library implementation using pure Lua. We'll be adding the ability to pass on default values to the class constructors and create private class members. Be sure to subscribe if you want to follow along with the process and other challenges that we'll be taking on. Okay, to start off, looking back at what we did in the last, the first thing that I'm going to want to tackle is default values. So what we're going to do is we're going to change, let's see. So we want to look at this function, which is how we define a new class. Let's say it's array of member names, so it has to be an array, I'm guessing, because here we do an integer pairs. I don't want to have to pass the name to the function. Oh, how about we just add a defaults argument. And we just say here, if the type of defaults is equal to table, then what we're going to do is going to say default default args equals defaults. We're actually going to get rid of this loop, and we're going to do a different loop that says for I equals 1 and the length of arg count do if is equal to nil or args I is equal to empty string. Then we'll check if classes defaults, then if class defaults I, then t hold on, I don't like that. I want to change that. So that's the member names, and we should probably get the defaults as well. And we'll say loop through the argument count if defaults is not equal to nil and the argument is not found. Then what we do is, okay, so we got rid of this because we just checked for default. So we need to check if the default exists for this, and if it does, we say t member names I equals defaults I, because we're gonna make defaults an array instead of a table. I mean, it's a table, but it's not gonna have key values, it's gonna have indexes. And then otherwise, we'll throw an assert there. Otherwise, if args I, okay, so this is going to be the case for when defaults is not null. So default exists. If the default exists and the argument is not equal to nil or not equal to an empty string. Actually, no, we don't need a case for that. What we need a case for is if default is equal to nil and args I equal to nil or args I is equal to empty string. Then what we do is we throw an assertion error as well and say basically the same thing. In any other case, that will say that there is an argument there. We say team member names I equals args I. Then we finish that off. Finish that off. And that looks good. And then we made this take in defaults as well. I just want to make sure that, let's see, end expected to close function at line 21 for class. Nope. Get length of local arg count number value 52. Oh, that's already a number. So everything still works with our test case that we had before. And what I'm going to do is create a new test case that says class.new class test2. We're going to pass it name and value. We're also going to give it some defaults. Default name is going to be default name. And the default value is going to be 123. Okay, first of all, let's run that. Make sure that loads. Okay. Then we'll say test2 equals class.new class test2. And I'll only pass it in the name. So we'll say not default name. Oh, I need to pass it as a table, don't I? Attempt to index default value for name, no default set. Oops. Class 60, main 17. So it's this one. The default is equal to nil. Oh, because it's supposed to be defaults. Defaults is not equal to nil. Okay, so that's working. And let's just go down here and do love graphics print. Let's do test2.name 080. Just print test2 value at 0100. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I'm passing in that default name. It's doing too much. Oh, I know why. Oh, I know why. I know why. I didn't pass this as a table. I was messing around with ellipsis. Yeah, okay. So that works. So we can now have default arguments by passing a second table to the new class method with the defaults in order. And it will just filter through them. And if I change this to a value like something bananas, it saves it. And if I change this to something crazier and take this out, it will default the value. So that's done. So we've got the default values. We can easily do those. So the next thing I want to do is a little bit more complicated. I want to make private members. So what we're going to do... Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to add a Boolean value. So we'll say Boolean private. And what this we're just going to say is private, be private. And I need a new local method. So let's make a new local method. It's like generate private prefix function. It's going to take in nothing. So we're going to say, first of all, when we go through here, we're going to have to do math.random seed os.time. So that we get a random seed set up, because I'm going to use random numbers now. Actually, I should call, technically that should get called in any program before anything gets done, but I'm wondering if I should put it in here. No, okay. So I'm going to make a random length. So it's going to be local random length, and I'm going to make local min prefix equals 3, local max prefix equals 8. I'm going to say math.len equals math.random between min prefix and max prefix. Just to be safe. Just because I don't trust this number system. So we're gonna get a random length, and we're gonna say for I equals 1 i's ranlen. We're going to make a string out. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to create a random prefix for the variables or the members of the classes when we create them. And its second index will be 90. That's just going to have 3 tables in it. And then we're going to have 97, 122. And then we're going to have a third table, and that's going to be 48 to 57. And I'm going to label these so that people know. So these are the valid characters that correspond to capital letters. These are the corresponding bytecodes that correspond to lowercase letters. And these are the bytecodes that correspond to numbers. And we need to make that distinction for a reason, because you can't have a variable name that starts with a number. You can't have anything that starts with a number. It'll throw an error, won't run. It's bad news. So for the first character, we're going to say local first is going to be equal to a random number. Actually, hold on. I don't feel comfortable unless I floor this value between 1 and 2. And then we'll say local pick equals math. I forgot to add the random part to it. And we're going to do this is going to be math for math.random. And this is going to be, the first one is going to be valid chars first pick 1, and then valid chars first pick 2. And then we're going to let out equal out plus concatenated to string.char pick. And actually we can do this on 1 line. We don't need to do 2 lines. It's a little bit complicated of a line, but it'll have to do. And then we'll say for I equals 2 to the length of the random length, we're going to do a set index. And that's going to be between 1 and 3. And then we'll say out is equal to out. And we're going to do string.char math.floor math.random from valid chars set index 1 to valid chars set index 2. And that should be good. And then when I'm going to call this function, and I literally just want this to print out. So I'm going to go to new class. I'm going to click generate private prefix and run this. Argument number 2 to random number expected got nil on line 35. Argument number 2 valid chars set index 1 valid chars set index 2. Oh, I got the number 1. Okay, let's try this again. So those are our private prefixes, so that seems to be working, and then we're going to return out instead of printing it. And then we can get rid of this. We'll copy this or cut it out, put it here, and we'll say, actually we can just save a call to a class thing and say if bprivate is equal to true. I know we could say just if bprivate, but I don't trust it as much as saying true. So what we're going to do is say for kv in pairs args, pairs args do, we'll say local prefix equals generate private prefix. We'll say it equals to prefix, concatenate v, and we'll say args k equals tmp, end, and at the end of this, we'll say t dot prefix equals prefix end. And then we'll transfer the arguments to the table. So if we go to the main function and we modify this, first of all giving it a default arguments table and then passing true in to say that we want this class to be private members. When I try to call this method, right down here is trying to call name, it's trying to print a null value. And we can prove this, and technically this is a way to get around the privatizing, because you know the names that you provided it. You don't know the prefix. What that means is, if we go through here and say at the end, for kv in pairs test do print, I'm sorry, if type k is equal to string and type v is equal to string, then print k v end event.quit. This is the name. So what this does is makes it so that in order to access those values, you have to go and make a construct, like a get set function. And so we're actually going to do that now. Like, I'm going to give a demonstration about that really quick and show what I mean, because we can't actually use any of these values that we have right now. And this is really easy, and I'm probably going to make a quick way to prototype it. But test name, it's going to get function self return self dot This is a good question. I'm not actually sure this is going to work. I might have to change something in this to get this to work. So let's call test get name. And let's just comment these out for now. That one should be still fine. Let's see if this works. I don't think it will. In 15 attempt to index, no value. Yeah, it's not going to work, which is actually good. It's good in a way. But it can be easily fixed, and it can be fixed by doing this. This is all it takes to fix this. We go to our meta table, and we do new index. Name, and we do this, and then what new index does, much like index, or it tries to look up a variable in the other class. So if it doesn't find it, it'll default back to that, and that should fix the error. Ooh, it still doesn't work. What is it called? Is that calling the value incorrectly? I am. It's underscore underscore prefix. Oh. And that works. So that's going to wrap up this video. I really just wanted to get that privatizing kind of, it's more like obfuscating the members away from the programmer. The only reason to do that is because it helps prevent you from unintentionally changing something. I do want to make a new boilerplate function that maybe, you know, making a get set method or whatever, so that you don't have to do this. But I think that's what I'm going to do in the next video. I'll work on that. But I think that as far as what I wanted to get done for this video, I think this was good progress. What we did was make it so that you can pass default variables in and have default arguments for the constructor. And we made it so that you can make a class private so that its members cannot be accessed. In the next video, I'm going to be going over, first of all, I'm going to fix the get set methods. I'm going to create a boilerplate for that so that we can easily make those values. And we're going to change pretty much the whole structure. I'm going to move the class structure up. Classes being their own objects and having that meta method or meta table inheritance, and kind of make it so that you only really make this call when you make a new class. So the idea is take it from going class.new. Instead, you'll say, like, for example, down here, you're gonna do test equals class.new class, and then you pass it in everything that you need to. And then when you want to make a new instance, you'll say local test equals test.new and pass in your arguments like that, so that it's an actual object. So that's going to be coming in the next video. We're going to go over the boilerplate for making the get set methods. We're going to do classes, making classes their own objects. And with that, we're going to also work towards making the class library handle inheritance, so making a class under a class. And I'll go over that in the next video. So if you want to keep up with the development of this library and then in the future projects, because this is really just a piece of you know, working towards making an actual class library that I can use for the other projects I want to do. So if you want to keep up with making this class library or the newer projects that I'm going to be working on in the coming days, make sure you subscribe, keep up with what's going on, and I hope to see you next time.